He mocked her in front of everyone, offering a month's salary if she could translate a single sentence, a miscalculation that would destroy his career in less than 5 minutes. The boardroom was packed, the air thick with tension and expensive cologne. 6 European executives sat around the massive glass conference table. Roger Vance laughed loudly, gesturing expansively with his hand while cracking a joke in English that was clearly an inside reference. No one on the other side of the table understood a word of the nuance. Marianne entered, pushing the cleaning cart, her gaze lowered. She stopped discreetly near the glass door. Roger turned his head and made an impatient gesture. "Not now. We're busy." She nodded slightly and started collecting empty water bottles from the side table. Silent, invisible. One of the Europeans said something in German, a quick, hushed comment. Roger smiled and nodded as if he understood, but his eyes wavered, betraying his ignorance. Surreptitiously, he reached for his phone under the table, typing frantically into a translation app. Marianne passed near the main table. Roger followed her with his eyes, a cruel idea crossing his mind. Then, with a wide, smirking grin, he spoke loudly. "Marianne, you speak German, don't you?" She stopped cold. She looked at him without understanding, her hands full of trash. "I'll pay you your entire month's paycheck, right here, right now, if you can translate what he just said." Laughter erupted in the room. The American colleagues laughed at their boss's wit. The foreigners exchanged confused glances, not understanding the cruelty of the game. Marianne gripped the cleaning rag in her hands. She took a deep breath, holding the air in her lungs. And then she looked directly at Roger. "How much did you say you'd pay, sir?" Roger leaned back in his leather chair, maintaining that smirk of superiority. "Your salary? $3,000, if you translate what he said." He pointed dismissively at the blonde executive with glasses. "Come on, Marianne, impress us." The other Americans chuckled softly, enjoying the show. One of them whispered something to another. Marianne placed the folded rag on her cart. She walked steadily to the table. She stopped beside Roger. He asked why the data in the financial report doesn't match the projections sent last week, and he said he needs a clear and direct answer before continuing any negotiation. Silence fell over the room like a heavy steel door slamming shut. The blonde executive's eyes widened behind his glasses. He said something in German, fast, looking directly at Marianne. She replied in the same language, with a crisp, flawless accent. He nodded, visibly impressed, and continued speaking, turning his full attention to her. Marianne turned to Roger, whose smile had vanished. "He wants to know if there was an error in the currency conversion or if the numbers have been fudged from the start." Roger turned beet red. He opened his mouth to reply, but nothing came out. One of the aides next to him cleared his throat, nervous. There was a glitch in the spreadsheet. We're fixing that right now." The German spoke again, his tone much more serious and severe this time. Marianne translated without a second's hesitation. He said that is unacceptable in a €20 million partnership. He demands a full audit before signing any contract. Roger raised a hand, desperately trying to control the situation, slipping through his fingers. Okay. We'll resolve this. Marianne, thank you. You can go now." "And the payment?" Roger froze. "You said you would pay my salary if I translated." "I translated." One of the European executives laughed. He said something in English with a heavy accent. Marianne responded in perfect American English, fluent and professional, without taking her eyes off Roger. The European laughed harder, appreciating the boldness. Roger clenched his jaw. "I was joking, Marianne. It wasn't serious." "Serious enough to humiliate me in front of everyone." Her voice was calm, but steady as steel. "You made a bet. I accepted. I won." Another executive, an older man with grey hair, spoke up in French. Marianne turned to him with elegance. She responded in the same language. He smiled, charmed, and continued the conversation. Roger slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! Marianne, get out of here right now!" The grey-haired executive raised a hand, stopping the outburst. He spoke in English, with a distinct, refined accent. "Excuse me, Mr. Vance, but I would like her to stay. We need adequate translation." "It seems there is a lot of confusion here." Roger tried to protest, but the man continued. "This meeting involves very high stakes. We cannot afford communication failures. She speaks 4 languages. Marianne nodded. "German, French, Spanish, and Italian, besides English and Portuguese." "Impressive." The man leaned forward. "Andrew Sterling. I work at the European headquarters. Where did you study?" "Columbia University, right here in the city." "Then I did a master's in linguistics in Argentina." Roger let out a forced, nervous laugh. "Marianne, you don't need to invent stories to look good." "I'm not inventing anything." She pulled her phone from her uniform pocket, opened a folder, and showed the screen to Andrew. "My degrees, you can verify them if you want." Andrew took the phone, zoomed in on the image. He passed it to the German sitting next to him. The two exchanged looks of approval. "Mr. Vance," Andrew said, handing the phone back with respect. "Why is a professional with this resume working as a cleaner?" Roger paled, running out of excuses. I didn't know. She never said anything." "You never asked," Marianne replied, cutting. "In 2 years working here, you never asked for my full name. You never asked where I came from. You never asked anything." Andrew turned his gaze back to Roger, stern. "How much did you promise to pay her?" "It was a joke, Andrew." How much?" Roger swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the room. $3,000. Andrew pulled out his wallet. He counted out €500, roughly equivalent to part of the sum, and placed the bills on the glass table, right in front of Marianne. "This covers the down payment, and I want you to hire her as a translator for the rest of this negotiation. Officially." "I can't just do that. Then the meeting ends here." Andrew stood up, closing his leather folder. The other Europeans followed suit immediately. Roger raised his hands, defeated. Wait. Fine. She can stay for this meeting." Andrew looked at Marianne with a raised eyebrow. "Do you accept?" She took the money from the table. She folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. "I accept." Roger sank into his chair, humiliated. His face was a mask of contained rage. The aides around him stared at their papers, avoiding eye contact. Marianne pulled up a leather chair. She sat at the table with dignity. She opened the notepad on her phone. "You may continue." Andrew smiled, satisfied. He sat down again. "Perfect. Now we can have a real conversation." Marianne woke up at 4:15 in the morning. The alarm hadn't even gone off yet. Her body already knew the time by heart. The apartment in Queens was dark and felt cold that morning. She got out of bed without making a sound. Luke and Julia slept in the next room, sharing the same twin bed. She had promised to buy another bed. She had promised that 8 months ago. In the tiny bathroom, she washed her face with freezing water to wake up. She looked at herself in the mirror that had a crack in the corner. 42 years old. She looked 50. The deep circles under her eyes didn't disappear anymore. She pulled her hair back into a tight, practical bun. In the kitchen, she boiled water for instant coffee. While she waited, she made 2 simple ham and cheese sandwiches for the kids. She wrapped them in plastic wrap. She left them on top of the fridge with a note. "Breakfast. Don't forget to double lock the door. Love you, Mom." She drank her coffee standing up, burning her tongue slightly. She ate 2 dry crackers. She grabbed her worn-out bag and left before 5 o'clock struck. The subway train took 20 minutes to arrive. She stood the entire ride on the E-train, gripping the metal pole tightly as the car rattled and swayed. 3 men slept on the benches with their heads against the window. A woman was breastfeeding a baby, wrapped in a blanket. No one spoke. Only the screech of metal on metal and the announcement of the next stop filled the air. She got off at 53rd and Lexington in Midtown, just as the city was starting to wake up. She walked 6 long blocks to the towering glass skyscraper. She swiped her badge at the turnstile at 5:40. The company occupied 20 floors of the tower. It was her job to clean from the 14th to the 18th. She changed clothes in the basement locker room. The navy blue uniform smelled of industrial disinfectant even after being washed. She grabbed her cart with the supplies. She started on the 18th floor. Bathrooms first. Always the bathrooms first. 12 years ago, this routine didn't exist even in her worst nightmares. 12 years ago, Marianne was teaching at Columbia University, comparative literature. She loved the lecture hall. She loved the smell of old books and campus coffee. She loved watching her students' eyes light up when they finally grasped a difficult concept. She married Julian at 27. He was a civil engineer. They had solid plans, a house in Westchester, trips to Europe, maybe 3 kids. Luke was born 2 years after the wedding. Julia arrived 3 years later. Then Julian received an offer he couldn't refuse. A multinational firm in Midtown offered him a VP position. The salary was triple what he made. He asked to move closer to the city. She tried to find a tenure-track position, but the universities in the city had no openings for her specialty at that moment. "It's temporary," Julian told her, hugging her. "You'll find something later, you'll see." They moved. They rented a nice apartment on the Upper West Side. It was tight, but the neighborhood was excellent. Marianne sent resumes everywhere, dozens of them. No one called. The academic market was saturated. She hadn't finished her PhD yet. She didn't have the connections in the city's elite circles. She had nothing but her past experience. Julian worked 14 hours a day, absorbed by the corporate grind. Marianne took care of the kids, managed the household. She tried not to feel useless. She tried not to miss the chalkboard and the literary debates. Then Julian started coming home late, smelling of scotch or cheap perfume. Then they stopped talking at dinner. Then he stopped coming home some nights. She discovered the other woman by accident, as it always happens. A text message left open on his phone screen. She confronted him that same night. He didn't even bother to deny it. He said he was tired of the routine. He said she had changed, that she had let herself go. He said he needed space to breathe. He left that same morning. He left 2 months of rent paid. Then he vanished. Marianne called him hundreds of times. He didn't answer. She sent texts begging for the kids. He blocked her on everything. She went to his office. The receptionist, embarrassed, told her he had resigned weeks ago. No one knew where he had gone, maybe the West Coast, maybe overseas. 3 months later, her savings dried up, and she lost the apartment. She took the kids, 2 suitcases with the essentials, and went to a family shelter in the Bronx. They stayed there 6 weeks, until she managed to rent a room in a basement apartment in Queens. She needed money. Fast. For food. To survive. She sent more resumes, now for anything. Nothing. She tried tutoring Spanish and French. She got 2 students. They didn't pay enough to support 2 kids in New York. She saw a flyer taped to a lamppost. Cleaner wanted. No experience necessary. Immediate hire, she called that same day. She was hired that same week. The first few months she cried, locked in the bathroom she cleaned during her breaks. She hid her face in her hands so no one would hear her sobs. Her hands, once used to turning book pages, became rough from the chemicals. Her back ached every night. She popped Advil before bed just to make it through the next day. But she paid the rent. She put hot food on the table. Luke and Julia had clean clothes for public school. She stopped crying. She learned to ignore the physical pain. She learned the art of being invisible. For 2 years, no one asked for her last name. No one asked where she came from or what she dreamed of. No one asked anything beyond, "Did you clean Mr. Vance's office yet?" Roger Vance never looked her in the eye, not once in 2 years. He walked past her in the hallways, talking on his phone as if she were part of the drywall. When he needed something, he simply snapped his fingers without turning around. "Hey, coffee. Now." She swallowed the rage and the pride. She made the coffee. She delivered it in silence and withdrew. But today, had been different. Today, she had ceased to be invisible. Marianne finished cleaning the last stall on the 18th floor. She put the products away in the cart with mechanical movements. She looked out the floor-to-ceiling window. The sun was beginning to illuminate the Manhattan skyline. She touched her uniform pocket. The 500 euros were still there, a tangible weight. It wasn't about the money, though she desperately needed it. It was about her voice. Finally, she had been heard. The meeting lasted 4 intense hours. Marianne translated every technical word, every idiom, every significant pause, every tone of voice that carried something beyond the literal meaning. Roger remained silent most of the time, humiliated in his own boardroom. His aides answered the technical questions. He signed documents with a clenched jaw, refusing to look at anyone. When the meeting ended and the preliminary agreements were signed, he stormed out without looking back. Andrew was the last to stand up. He packed his papers into his leather briefcase. He looked at Marianne with genuine interest. "Do you have a few minutes?" She looked at the wall clock. 7:40 in the morning. Her cleaning shift started at 6. She was already almost 2 hours behind on her duties. Yes. They went to the small break room on the 16th floor. Andrew poured 2 coffees from the machine. He sat at one of the white plastic tables meant for the staff. Marianne remained standing, hesitating. "Sit down, please. No formalities." She sat on the edge of the chair. She held the hot cup with both hands to warm her fingers. "You said you have a master's," Andrew began, direct. "Why are you working here cleaning floors?" Marianne took a small sip. The coffee was scalding, but she didn't flinch. "Because I need to pay rent and eat." "Do you have family to help?" "I have 2 kids, 10 and 7. They depend on me. And the father disappeared 3 years ago. The earth swallowed him up." Andrew nodded slowly, processing the information. There was no pity in his gaze, only deep understanding. "My mother raised 3 kids alone in Chicago. My father left when I was 8. She worked cleaning houses and offices for 15 years. Marianne looked up, surprised by the confession. "I grew up seeing her wake up at 4 in the morning, just like you. Seeing her come back at 10 at night, exhausted. Seeing her count quarters to buy bread and milk." He stirred his coffee with a wooden stick. "She never complained. She never cried in front of us. But I heard her crying at night, through the wall. I knew." "How did you get out?" "I studied like a maniac, got a full scholarship. Then I went to college at night while working days in a warehouse. Took me 12 years to get my MBA. He smiled, but it was a smile tinged with melancholy. "My mum died 2 months before my graduation. She never saw me walk across that stage." Marianne lowered her eyes, feeling a lump in her throat. "I'm so sorry." "Me too." He took a long sip of coffee. "But she taught me something vital. Dignity doesn't come from the work you do. It comes from how you do it, from who you are while you do it." Silence. Only the soft hum of the central AC could be heard. "Why are you telling me all this?" Marianne asked, genuinely confused. "Because I saw the way you held that room today. I saw your posture, your calm under pressure, the precision of your words." He placed the cup on the table firmly. "You didn't act like someone desperate for revenge. You acted like someone who knows her own worth, despite everything. And what do you want from me?" "Nothing." He opened his briefcase and pulled out an elegant business card. He slid it across the table. "I'm offering you something. The company is expanding operations into Latin America and Europe. We need translators specialized in international contracts and high-level negotiations, someone who understands technical terms, cultural nuances, legislation." Marianne looked at the card without touching it, gold lettering on black stock. "It's not charity," Andrew continued, reading her mind. "It's a business opportunity. You have the qualifications I'm looking for. I need competent professionals. It's that simple. And Roger, he's the director here. He doesn't decide this, I do. I coordinate international expansion from Europe. Roger only manages local operations. They are different departments, different budgets." Marianne took the card. She turned it over in her rough fingers. "How much does it pay?" $10,000 a month to start, plus full benefits, health insurance, office hours, remote work options when necessary. She almost dropped the cup. 10,000. It was more than triple what she made breaking her back now. Are you serious? Completely serious. He stood up, smoothing his suit. But I need you to email your updated resume to me before tomorrow. And I need academic references. Old ones from Columbia or wherever, if possible. I have them. I have everything saved. Excellent. Then we'll talk on Monday to formalize it. He extended his hand. Marianne stood up too. She shook his hand. Her grip was firm, professional. Andrew stopped in the doorway. Oh, and Marianne? Yes? Today you didn't humiliate that man. You simply showed who he really is. There is a big difference. He walked out. Marianne stood alone in the break room. She looked at the card in her hand. Andrew Sterling, International Expansion Coordinator. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She read the card 3 times to make sure it was real. Then she put it in her pocket, next to the euro bills. She took the cup, washed it in the sink carefully, dried it, put it back on the shelf. When she returned to the locker room, the other cleaning ladies were changing. One of them, Ms. Carla, an older, wise woman, looked at her curiously. Is it true you spoke German to those suits? Yes, it's true. And Mr. Vance turned red. He turned purple. Ms. Carla let out a loud, hearty laugh. She slapped her thigh. I would have given my week's pay to see his face. When he walked out, he looked like he'd swallowed a whole lemon. The other women laughed too, celebrating the small victory. Marianne smiled. She changed clothes, putting away her uniform. She grabbed her bag. On the subway ride back to Queens, she managed to get a seat by the window, which was rare. The train moved out of the tunnel and onto the elevated tracks. The city moved fast, chaotic. Cars, people running, grey buildings, everything passing in flashes. She pulled out her phone, opened the documents folder. Her scanned diplomas were there, language certificates, letters of recommendation from professors she hadn't seen in over 10 years. She had stopped looking at that folder. She had stopped opening it because it hurt too much, because it reminded her of everything she had lost and what she could have been. But now, for the first time in 3 years, those digital files meant something again. They weren't just painful memories of a better past. They were tools for the future. When she got home, Luke and Julia were watching TV in the small living room. Julia jumped off the couch when she saw her. Mom, you're late. Sorry, baby. I had to stay a bit longer at work today. We already ate breakfast, Luke said, without taking his eyes off the cartoon. And we had ramen for lunch. Marianne dropped her bag on a chair. She went to the kitchen. The styrofoam bowls were in the trash. The kids had learned to fend for themselves. They had learned to grow up too fast for their age. She started making rice and chicken for dinner. Real food. While she cooked, Julia walked over and leaned against the counter. Mom, can I ask you something? Sure, honey. Are you going to clean offices forever? Marianne turned off the stove. She crouched down to be at eye level with her daughter. Why do you ask that, sweetie? Because Chloe, my friend at school, said her mom is a lawyer, and Peter's mom is a doctor, and when I said you clean buildings, she laughed at me. Marianne took a deep breath, feeling a sting in her heart. She held her daughter's face in her hands. Julia, look at me. There is no shameful job. There is dignified work. I clean to put food on this table, to pay for your notebooks, to give you what you need. And I don't have a shred of shame about that. And you shouldn't either. I know, Mom. I'm not ashamed. I just wanted you not to have to wake up so early and come home so tired. Marianne hugged her daughter tight. She pressed her against her chest. Julia smelled of strawberry shampoo and innocence. It's going to get better. I promise things are going to get better very soon. And this time, when she said it, she believed it herself. Monday morning, Marianne sent the email with her resume at 7 o'clock sharp. She attached the digitized diplomas, the letters of recommendation, the full history of her academic publications and previous translations. At 9:15, Andrew replied, "Perfect, impressive." Meeting Wednesday 2 p.m. Bring original documents for verification. She read the message 5 times to make sure she hadn't imagined it. Then she showed it to Ms. Carla in the locker room, secretly. 10,000 a month. Carla's eyes went wide. Girl, are you leaving us? I don't know yet. It's just an interview, a meeting. But it's a golden ticket. Carla squeezed her arm with motherly affection. Don't let it slip away. For the love of God. Wednesday arrived slowly, dragging. Marianne woke up at 4 as always, but couldn't go back to sleep due to nerves. She lay there staring at the water stains on the ceiling, mentally rehearsing what she was going to say, how she was going to introduce herself, if she should bring a printed portfolio, if she should mention the 3 years of cleaning on her resume, or focus the conversation only on her previous academic qualifications. At 1:30 in the afternoon, she swapped her uniform for a crisp white blouse and black dress pants she had kept at the back of the closet, the only formal outfit she had left. She let her hair down and combed it carefully. She put on a little discreet lipstick. She looked in the employee restroom mirror. She didn't look like a cleaning lady, but she didn't feel completely like an executive yet either. She looked like someone in between, someone in transition, someone trying to be reborn. The meeting was on the 12th floor, in the HR office. Andrew was there, along with 2 women from personnel. They reviewed the documents meticulously. They asked questions about her experience, about the gaps in her history. They asked her to translate technical paragraphs of legal contracts in real time to test her speed. She nailed everything. She translated with surgical precision. At 3:40, one of the HR women smiled and closed the folder. Welcome to the team, Marianne. Can you start next Monday? She could barely get a word out, her throat closed with emotion. Yes, I can. Excellent. You will receive the formal offer and contract via email today. When she walked out of the office, her legs were shaking like jelly. She went into the guest bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and let the tears fall freely, silent but liberating. 3 years of weight and anguish leaving her body all at once. Then she washed her face with cold water. She went back to the basement locker room. Ms. Carla was taking her coffee break. She saw Marianne's face and knew immediately. Did you get it? I got it. Carla jumped up and hugged her tight, almost knocking the wind out of her. Thank God, baby girl, thank the Lord. Marianne worked until the end of that week with the same dedication as always. She cleaned every floor, every desk. On Friday, she handed in her clean, folded uniform. The supervisor signed her resignation. She gathered her things. She walked out the service door, that grey back door, for the last time in her life. The following Monday, she walked in through the main revolving glass door. She swiped her new administrative employee badge at the turnstile. The reader beeped approval. She took the executive elevator up to the 12th floor. Her desk was near the window. She had a modern computer, phone, leather planner. She sat in the ergonomic chair and breathed the clean, conditioned air. Andrew walked by her station. Everything in order? Yes, thank you so much for everything. You don't have to thank me, just do your job well. And she worked. She translated complicated contracts between New York and Berlin, between London and Paris, between Mexico City and Madrid. She reviewed legal terms, exclusivity clauses, international trade agreements. The work was intense and mentally exhausting, but she loved it. She loved using her brain again to the max. She loved that feeling of having an intellectual purpose. The first paycheck arrived on the 15th, a substantial direct deposit after taxes. Marianne looked at the balance on her banking app 3 times. She cried again, sitting in her living room. But this time was different. It was pure relief. She paid the rent on the room in advance. She went to the supermarket and bought real food, steak, fresh fruit, vegetables, brand-name yogurt. She bought the new bed she had promised Julia. She took the kids out for pizza at a nice restaurant in Manhattan. Luke ate a whole pie by himself. Julia ordered a giant sundae for dessert. "Mom, did we win the lottery?" Luke asked with wide eyes. No, honey, Mom got a better job. Like what? I'm a translator. I work with languages, helping people understand each other. Like a teacher? Similar, but in an office. Julia smiled with chocolate smeared on her mouth. Now you don't have to clean bathrooms anymore? I don't have to do that anymore. That's good, because you deserve better things, Mom. Marianne took her daughter's small hand across the table. She squeezed it gently. The weeks flew by. The routine changed radically. Now she woke up at 6, a human hour. She made a full breakfast, eggs, toast, juice. She walked the kids to the school gate. She took the subway to Midtown. She worked from 8 to 5. She got home at 6:30. She had time. She had energy. She had a life again. One afternoon, Andrew called her into his private office. Have a seat. I need to tell you something. Marianne sat down, tense, thinking she had made a mistake. Is something wrong? Not at all. Quite the opposite. He turned his computer monitor towards her. Look at this. It was an email from the Berlin headquarters. They praised Marianne's translation. They said it was the most precise and natural they had received in years of operating in the US. They explicitly asked to use her services for all future contracts in the region. You are impressing very important people in Europe, Andrew said with pride. Keep it up. She left the office feeling like she was floating, but not everything was rosy. Some colleagues on the 12th floor watched her with suspicion and mistrust. They whispered behind her back when she went to get coffee. One of them, Patty Myers, was direct and cruel one day in the hallway. You were the cleaning lady here, right? Yes, I was. And now you feel like you're on our level with our master's degrees. I'm doing my job, just like everyone else here. Patty crossed her arms, looking her up and down. I just find it very weird. Someone who scrubbed toilets is now translating million-dollar contracts. What would be weird is having a master's from Columbia and still cleaning toilets because no one gives you a chance. Patty didn't know what to say. She made a face and turned on her heel, walking away loudly. But Andrew heard the conversation from his doorway. He walked past Marianne and murmured, "Ignore her. Envy has never produced anything but bitterness in the person who feels it." She learned to ignore the venomous comments. She focused on the work. She delivered everything before the deadline. She exceeded expectations time and time again. One Thursday, Roger Vance got on the elevator at the same time as her. He didn't look at her. He pretended to be very busy typing on his phone. Marianne remained silent, dignified. The elevator hummed upward. At the 12th floor, she got out. Roger continued to the upper floors. Before the steel doors closed, he looked at her. It was just a fraction of a second, but she saw it clearly. Rage. Humiliation. A deep resentment. She felt no pity for him, not a bit. At home, things changed for the better, too. Luke started doing his homework without anyone begging him. Julia sang more often. The small apartment, though humble, felt lighter, as if the walls had absorbed the shift in positive energy. One Friday night, Marianne sat on the couch with both of them. Julia rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "Mom, are you happier now?" "I am, sweetie. It shows." How does it show?" "You smile more, and you don't sigh sadly when you think we aren't looking." Marianne kissed her daughter's head. "I'm sorry if I made you worry before." "You didn't do anything wrong," Luke said maturely, not taking his eyes off the TV. "You were just really tired. Now you're better." She hugged them both, making a human sandwich. She squeezed them tight. They were her everything. They always had been. And now, finally, she could give them a little more than just basic survival. She could give them stability. She could give them security. She could give them hope for a future. At the end of the second month, Andrew called her again. "There is an important conference in D.C. next month. 3 days. Simultaneous translation for European and local investors. Are you interested in going?" "Absolutely." "Perfect. You'll get full per diem and extra pay. And it's an excellent networking opportunity." Marianne walked out of the office and called Ms. Carla on her break. Remember you told me I was going to go far? Of course I remember. You were right. Carla laughed on the other end of the line. I'm always right, honey. You should know that by now. Marianne hung up with a smile. She looked out the window of the 12th floor. New York City stretched to the horizon, busy, vibrant, skyscrapers, avenues, millions of people, constant motion, life happening. And she, finally, was part of it again, not as an invisible shadow, not as someone disposable, but as someone who mattered. 3 weeks later, Marianne was reviewing an urgent contract when Patty appeared at her desk. She dropped a folder onto her keyboard brusquely. Andrew asked you to review this. It's urgent. Marianne opened it. It was a crucial contract with a German firm, 15 dense pages. It had to be ready before 5 p.m. She looked at the clock. 3:40. Why are you giving this to me just now? Patty shrugged, indifferent. Just got it. Problem. None. She worked at an impressive speed. She translated, reviewed, checked every legal clause. At 4:50, she sent the finalized file to Andrew's email. She sighed, relieved to have made it. The next morning, Andrew walked onto the 12th floor with a dark look on his face. He went straight to Marianne's desk. Marianne, my office, right now. She stood up, feeling a cold pit in her stomach. She felt the curious and mocking stares of the other colleagues. She followed him in silence. Inside the office, Andrew closed the door. He didn't ask her to sit. The contract you translated yesterday, it is riddled with serious errors. Marianne froze. What do you mean? He opened his laptop and turned the screen. Look at this. Clause 3. You translated delivery terms as payment terms. Clause 7. You inverted the currency values. Clause 10. You used the wrong legal term. The German client sent it back furious. He said it is unacceptable and amateur. She leaned in to the screen. She read the highlighted phrases. Her heart raced. Andrew, I translated this correctly. I'm sure of it. Do you have the original file you sent? Yes, I do. She pulled out her phone, opened her sent items. She found the attached document. It's here. Look for yourself. Andrew opened the file from the phone. He read. He frowned, confused. This isn't the file that reached the client. What do you mean? He took his laptop, opened another file. He put the two side by side. They were different. The file Marianne had sent was flawless. The one that reached the client was full of deliberately introduced errors. Someone altered the document, Marianne said, her voice shaking with rage. After I sent it. Andrew ran a hand down his face, frustrated. Who has access to the outbound system? Everyone in the department. And the managers. He snapped the laptop shut. I'm going to investigate this thoroughly, but in the meantime, the client is furious. He threatened to cancel the contract. We are talking about $5 million. Andrew, I swear on my kids that I know. He raised a hand to calm her. I believe you. I know how you work, but I have to resolve this mess. Stay out of it and let me handle it. She walked out of the office with jelly legs. She went back to her desk. Patty watched her out of the corner of her eye with a triumphant little smirk. Marianne pretended not to see her, but inside she was boiling. 2 days later, another problem arose. An anonymous email arrived at the Human Resources address. An ethics tip. It said that Marianne Stone had falsified her degrees, that she had never done a master's, that everything was a sham. HR summoned her immediately. They demanded original documents once again. She brought everything: certified diplomas, transcripts, notarized letters of recommendation. Everything seems to be in order, the HR coordinator said, checking with a magnifying glass. But per protocol, we will have to call Colombia and the Institute in Argentina to confirm authenticity directly at the source. You can call whoever you want. They called, they confirmed. Marianne Stone, Bachelor of Arts in Literature, Masters in Applied Linguistics. All true, all official. The complaint was dismissed as baseless, but the damage to her reputation was already done. Gossip spread like wildfire across the floor. Some people started looking at her differently, with doubt, with suspicion. The following week, she was assigned to translate at a critical meeting with French investors. She prepared obsessively. She studied the technical financial terms. She reviewed industry-specific vocabulary. The day of the meeting, she arrived at 7:30, half an hour early. The conference room was empty. She checked the confirmation email on her phone. The meeting was set for 8 o'clock sharp. Conference room C, 15th floor. At 8:15, her phone vibrated. It was Andrew. "Marianne, where the hell are you?" "In room C, waiting for them to arrive." "The meeting is in room B, 16th floor. We are all here waiting for you." She ran for the stairwell. She took the stairs 2 at a time. She entered room B at 8:20, panting. Everyone was already seated. The Frenchman looked at her with impatience and disapproval. Andrew was visibly tense. "Sorry for the delay," she said, trying to catch her breath. One of the Frenchmen muttered something harsh in his language. She translated for Andrew by reflex. He said lack of punctuality is a lack of absolute respect. The meeting proceeded, but the atmosphere was poisoned. Marianne translated everything perfectly, but the tension never left the room. At the end, Andrew pulled her aside in the hallway. "What happened? You are never late." "The email said room C, 15th floor. I have the confirmation here." "Show me." She opened her phone. She searched for the email. The text had changed. Now it clearly said room B, 16th floor. But she had absolute certainty of what she had read the night before. "Someone is messing with my stuff," she said, feeling a chill. "Someone is trying to sabotage me systematically." Andrew took a deep breath, looking around. "Do you have any idea who?" She didn't answer the name, but both knew exactly who it was. That same afternoon, Marianne was going out for lunch when she saw Roger chatting with Patty in a corner near the elevators. He handed her a folded piece of paper discreetly. The two laughed quietly, conspiratorially. Patty put the paper in her purse. Marianne walked past them. Roger didn't even look at her, but she felt the shockwave of his satisfaction, the subtle pleasure of watching her stumble and fall. That night at home, Luke noticed his mum was unusually quiet. "Mum, everything okay?" "Yeah, son, everything's fine." "That's not true. You're playing with your food and not eating anything." She dropped her fork on the plate. "I have some problems at work, that's all." "What kind of problems?" "Nothing you need to worry about." But she was worried, terrified. Because if one more error happened, if one single thing went wrong, Andrew wouldn't be able to protect her. The corporation wouldn't tolerate more failures, not with $5 million at stake. And Roger knew that perfectly well. On Friday, she received an urgent email from HR. Subject, mandatory meeting, Monday, 9:20 a.m. There were no other details in the body of the email, only the time and place. She showed it to Andrew. He closed his eyes, massaging his temples. "I'll be there with you." "Are they going to fire me?" "Not if I can help it." But his voice didn't sound confident. It sounded tired, worn down by bureaucracy. Marianne left the building at 5:30. She took the subway during rush hour, crushed in the crowd. She stood, gripping the metal pole. The tunnel lights passed quickly. Darkness, light, darkness, light. 3 months ago, she had emerged from invisibility. She had recovered her voice, her identity. She had come back to existence. Now someone was trying to erase her again, to push her back into the shadows. And the worst part, it was working. Monday, 9 in the morning. Marianne entered the boardroom on the 18th floor. The table was full of important people. Andrew was on one side, serious, 3 people from HR, 2 regional directors she had never seen in person, and Roger Vance seated on the other side, arms crossed and an expression of contained triumph. The HR coordinator, Ms. Fernandez, pointed to an empty chair. "Have a seat, please." Marianne sat down. She put her bag on her lap, hugging it like a shield. Her hands were sweating cold. "Marianne, We are here to discuss a series of concerning incidents involving your performance, Fernandez began, formal. Serious errors in translations, unexplained lateness to key meetings, anonymous reports regarding your qualifications. We need to clear this up once and for all. I understand. Roger leaned forward, intervening. Ms. Fernandez, if I may, I would like to add something to give context. Go ahead, Roger. He opened a thick folder. He pulled out various papers and charts. Since Ms. Stone was promoted from her previous position, we have had 4 serious incidents. A contract almost cancelled with Germany, $5 million at risk due to incompetence, a meeting with French investors starting 20 minutes late, and doubts about the authenticity of her degrees. The complaints about the degrees were investigated, Andrew interrupted sharp. Everything was confirmed as true and legitimate. Yes, but the fact is there were complaints. This generates mistrust in the work environment, Roger replied, flipping through his papers. And we have complaints from colleagues. They say Marianne has trouble adapting to the corporate culture, that she is resistant to authority. Marianne took a deep breath, controlling her urge to scream. Resistant to what exactly? To feedback, to guidance, to the way we do things at this company. Who complained? Roger looked at Fernandez, seeking support. I cannot reveal identities. These are confidential complaints to protect the employee. Andrew slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous and you know it. She has 3 months of impeccable work. Direct praise from Berlin and Paris. Deliveries before the deadline. You are inventing problems where there are none. I am inventing nothing. I'm protecting the company's interests. You are protecting your fragile ego, Andrew replied, filterless, because she humiliated you in front of everyone 3 months ago. Roger turned red with anger. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with it. Fernandez raised a hand, authoritative. Enough! We are not here to trade personal accusations. She stared fixedly at Marianne. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Marianne opened her bag. She pulled out her personal tablet. She placed it on the table. I have a lot to say. Can I show you? Go ahead. She unlocked the screen and opened a file. She turned the tablet so everyone could see. This is the contract I sent for Germany. Error-free, a perfect translation. I sent it at 5 p.m. on the 15th. Here is the timestamp. She swiped her finger to show the next document. This is the contract that reached the client, full of intentional errors, sent at 7 p.m. that same day, 2 hours later, from Patty Meyer's computer terminal. Sepulchral silence in the room. How did you get this information? Fernandez asked, surprised. I asked a contact in IT for help. They traced the file history. It was modified and resent deliberately, not by me. Fernandez looked at one of the directors. He nodded gravely. She continued. And the meeting with the French. Marianne showed another screenshot. This is the original email I received. Room C, 15th floor. Screenshot taken at 10 p.m. Sunday. When I arrived at the office Monday, the email on the server had been altered. Room B, 16th floor. Someone with admin access modified the appointment in my calendar. Roger shifted uncomfortably in his chair. That proves nothing. Could be a system glitch. It proves someone is sabotaging my work actively. Or it proves you are paranoid and looking for scapegoats, Roger attacked. Andrew turned to him, relentless. Roger, did you ask Patty to alter those files? Of course not. That's absurd. Then why were you seen chatting with her alone 3 times last week? Why did you hand her confidential documents in the hallway? Those are internal matters of my department. Patty doesn't work in your department. She works in mine. Roger opened his mouth to defend himself, but closed it, having no answer. One of the directors, Mr. Harrison, a man with white hair and imposing presence, cleared his throat. Mr. Vance, how long have you worked for this firm? 12 years, sir. And in that time, how many people have you supervised? I don't know the exact number. Hundreds, maybe. How many of those people were women of color or from minority backgrounds in leadership positions? Roger hesitated, visibly nervous. I don't know for sure. None, Marianne said, voice firm and clear. I checked the historical org chart. In 12 years, Mr. Roger has never promoted a single black woman or minority candidate from entry level. He never hired a woman of color for a management role. He never proposed one for leadership training. That means nothing, Roger protested, sweating. I hire on merit, not quotas. And all the women who passed through your department had no merit? Andrew asked, cornering him. I didn't say that. Then what are you saying exactly? Roger remained silent, trapped. Fernandez flipped through some papers in a separate file. Mr. Vance, there are 3 archive proceedings against you from previous years. 2 for workplace harassment, 1 for discrimination, all resolved with internal and confidential settlements. Were you aware of this, Mr. Harrison? The director nodded with gravity. I knew, and it was a monumental mistake on our part to let it slide. Marianne looked at Roger. He avoided her gaze at all costs. For the first time, he looked small, insignificant. I worked 2 years in this company, Marianne started saying, voice controlled but charged with emotion. 2 years cleaning the floors you walk on without looking. 2 years listening to your conversations as if I were part of the furniture. 2 years being invisible to you. And in all that time, no one asked for my full name. No one asked where I came from. No one asked if I had a family, dreams, a story. I was just the cleaning lady. She took a deep breath, gathering strength. But I had a name. I had an academic education. I had dignity. And when I had the chance to prove it, when finally you gave me a chance to use what I know how to do, someone tried to take me down. Not because I failed, but because I dared to rise. Roger stared at his papers, not looking up. You want to know if I have trouble with feedback? I don't. I have trouble with sabotage. You want to know if I am resistant? I am. I am resistant to being treated as inferior just because one day I cleaned your toilets. Her voice became firmer, resonating in the room. I did my job. I did it well. I have proof. I have praise from clients. I have flawless deliveries. If that isn't enough for you, then the problem isn't in me. It is in this company. Absolute silence. No one moved. Fernandez closed the folder with a snap. She looked at Roger. Mr. Vance, you are suspended from your duties immediately while we investigate these accusations thoroughly. We will interview Patty. We will audit all digital files. And depending on what we find, legal measures will be taken. Roger stood up abruptly. This is an outrage. I built half this department. And you almost destroyed its reputation completely, Mr. Harrison said, cold as ice. You may leave. Roger walked out of the room. He slammed the door on his way out. Fernandez looked at Marianne gently. I am very sorry for what you had to go through, Marianne. We are going to correct all this. Andrew smiled slightly. She deserves much more than apologies. Mr. Harrison nodded. I agree. He looked at Marianne directly. We would like to offer you the position of General Translation Coordinator, a 30% raise on your current salary. You will have your own team, private office on the 18th floor. Do you accept? Marianne blinked, incredulous. The words were taking time to process. Yes, I accept. Excellent. Andrew will help you with the transition. The meeting ended. Marianne walked out into the hallway. Andrew put a hand on her shoulder, brotherly. You were incredible in there. I was shaking with fear. It didn't show at all. She smiled. For the first time in weeks, she smiled for real, her soul light. 3 days later, Roger Vance was fired permanently. Patty was transferred to a minor branch upstate. And Marianne moved to the 18th floor. The office had glass walls, a panoramic view of all of Midtown, a wide wooden desk, a new state-of-the-art computer, and a silver plate on the door. Marianne Stone, Translation Coordinator. She touched the plate with her fingertips. She felt the relief of the letters, her name, visible, recognized, real. 6 months later, Marianne woke up at 7 in the morning. Not at 4, not in the dark, At 7, with sunlight entering gently through the window of her new apartment in Brooklyn Heights, she made whole bean coffee, fluffy pancakes, fresh orange juice. Luke and Julia sat at the table still in pajamas. They ate slowly, without rushing, talking about school, about plans for the weekend. "Mum, can I invite Chloe to sleep over Saturday?" Julia asked. "You can, but you have to clean your room first." "I promise." Marianne took the kids to school, not by bus or subway, in a car, a used sedan, but it ran perfectly. She had bought it last month. She put down the deposit and was paying the monthly installments comfortably. Then she drove to the office in Midtown. She parked in her assigned spot in the garage. She went up in the elevator, 18th floor, her floor. Her team had 5 people now, all young and talented translators, all qualified. She led the weekly meetings, distributed the workload, reviewed quality. She led with empathy. That morning a new translator arrived, Camilla, 24 years old, fresh out of college, visibly nervous. Marianne received her at her office door with a warm smile. "Welcome, Camilla. Come in, sit down. Do you want a coffee?" "Yes, please." They talked for half an hour. Marianne explained with patience how the department worked, the quality expectations, the current projects. Camilla listened attentively, taking notes in a notebook. "You seem much calmer than me," Camilla said, laughing nervously. "On my first day here I was shaking so much I spilled coffee on the conference table," Marianne confessed. "You'll get used to it, you'll see." "I hope so. You will, and if you need help, my door is always open, always." Camilla relaxed visibly. "Thank you so much, Mom." In the afternoon, Andrew stopped by her office. "Got a minute?" "Sure, come in." They went to his office. He poured her a glass of water. He sat down. "I wanted to show you something." He picked up a bound report. "Customer satisfaction numbers from European clients. Since you took over coordination, they went up 40%. Complaints dropped to absolute 0. You are doing an exceptional job, Marianne. It's the team. They are very good. The team is good because you know how to lead." He closed the report. "And there is something else. The board wants to expand the translation department. They want to double the size next year. Are you up for it? Double. 10 more people, more international projects, more responsibility, and a considerable salary adjustment, of course." Marianne took a deep breath, feeling the good adrenaline. "I'm up for it." "Excellent. We'll go over the details next week." When she left Andrew's office, she leaned against the hallway wall for a moment. She closed her eyes. She smiled to herself, savoring the moment. On Friday, she left at 5 sharp. She went to pick up the kids from their activities. She took them to an artisanal ice cream shop. They sat at a small table on the sidewalk, watching people pass by. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Luke said, licking his chocolate ice cream. "Tell me, do you miss Dad?" Marianne didn't expect that question. She remained silent for a few seconds, searching for the truth. "Sometimes, but not in the way you imagine." "What do you mean?" "I miss the idea I had of him, of what I thought we were. But I don't miss the real man, because the real man abandoned us when we needed him most." Julia stirred her ice cream with the spoon. "Do you think he'll come back someday?" "I don't know, baby. And honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. We are fine. The 3 of us. We don't need him to be happy." Luke nodded slowly, understanding. "That's true. We're good like this." Julia smiled. "Yeah, we're good." That night, Marianne lay on the couch after the kids fell asleep. She put the TV on mute. She looked at the ceiling. She thought about everything that had happened. 2 years scrubbing floors on her knees, 3 months rebuilding her career from scratch, 6 months leading an international team. Life wasn't perfect. There were still bills to pay. There was still tiredness at the end of the day. There were still hard days. But it was different now. She wasn't invisible anymore. On Saturday, Marianne went back to the company building, not to work, to visit someone important. She went down to the service basement, the cleaning lady's locker room. Ms. Carla was taking her mid-morning coffee. She saw Marianne enter and stood up quickly from the bench. Baby girl, what a surprise to see you here. They hugged with affection. Marianne had brought a large cake. She put it on the center table. Other colleagues approached, curious. They ate together, chatting, laughing at stories. How are things upstairs? Carla asked. Different, good. But I don't forget where I come from, Carla. I know. That's why you came back to visit us. Marianne smiled tenderly. And because I have a proposal for you all. What kind of proposal? The company is opening spots for an internal training program. Paid night classes for employees who want to switch fields or finish their studies. Administration, IT, languages. I helped design the program, and I wanted you all to be the first to know. Carla's eyes went wide with shock. Really? Really? Whoever is interested, come find me in my office. I will personally help you with the registration and paperwork. One of the younger girls, Jenna, raised her hand shyly. I always wanted to learn how to use computers, but I never had money to pay for a course. Now you have the opportunity, Marianne said, looking her in the eye, and I will support you. Jenna smiled, tears shining in her eyes. When Marianne left the building, the midday sun illuminated the street. She walked to her car. She got in and closed the door, isolating the city noise. She sat for a moment, hands steady on the steering wheel. 6 months ago, she had been humiliated in that same building, on that same floor she now directed. Today, she was changing lives inside it. She started the engine, and she headed home, 5 years later. Marianne entered the grand auditorium of Columbia University. 200 people sat waiting. The majority were immigrants or displaced people, Africans, Latinos, Asians. All shared the same story, professional education in their home country and a restart from zero in the US, often in the informal economy. She walked onto the stage with a sure step. She adjusted the microphone. She looked at the audience. In the back, leaning against the wall, were Luke and Julia. Now they were 15 and 12. Luke wore his tech high school backpack. Julia held a notebook, taking notes with pride. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marianne Stone. 7 years ago, I cleaned toilets in a skyscraper in Midtown. I had 2 young kids, a bank account at zero, and a master's degree that no one wanted to recognize or validate. An attentive silence filled the room. Many of you are living this right now. You are doctors, engineers, professors, lawyers in your countries, and here you are driving Ubers, delivering food, cleaning other people's houses. Not because you aren't qualified, but because the system sometimes refuses to see you. She walked the stage, connecting with the people. I founded the Bridge Institute 3 years ago. We help migrants and professionals validate their degrees. We offer free legal consulting. We connect talent with companies that value real diversity. We have already helped more than 400 people go back to practicing their professions with dignity, and we will help many more. Spontaneous applause erupted in the auditorium. She waited for it to die down. She continued. But I am not here just to talk about the Institute. I am here to tell you one fundamental thing. Do not accept invisibility. Do not accept being treated as less. You are not less. You are qualified professionals who had the immense courage to restart in a foreign land. And that is worth more than any diploma hanging on the wall. A woman in the front row wiped her tears. Others nodded, feeling seen for the first time. After the lecture, dozens of people approached her. They handed her resumes, told her their stories. They asked questions. Marianne answered everyone, one by one, without rushing. When the auditorium finally emptied, Luke and Julia approached the stage. "Mom, you were incredible," Julia said, hugging her. "Thank you, sweetie." "I want to do this too," Luke said, serious. "Help people, like you do." Marianne hugged her son, feeling how tall he had gotten. "You will, son, in your own way, but you will." On the way back home, they made a quick stop at the company building. Marianne had to pick up some urgent documents. She went up to the 18th floor. Her office was now much bigger. A corner suite, floor-to-ceiling glass walls, a full view of the city illuminated at night. On the opposite wall, an elegantly framed photograph, her receiving the Executive of the Year award from the Chamber of Commerce. Andrew was by her side in the photo, smiling proudly. Mr. Harrison was handing her the commemorative plaque. She looked at the photo for a moment. She touched the glass. 7 years. It seemed like a whole lifetime. It seemed like yesterday. Andrew walked in without knocking, as he used to do. Ready for tomorrow? Berlin. Berlin. 3 days. World Conference. You will represent the entire corporation. I know. I still have a hard time believing it. Better believe it. You earned every inch of this road. She grabbed her bag and the documents. The two walked out together towards the elevators. In the elevator, Andrew said, "Do you remember the first time I saw you translating in that room full of tension? I remember perfectly. I knew in that precise moment, I knew you were going to go very far. You bet on me when no one else would give a dime for me. I bet on talent, Marianne. The rest, you did all by yourself." The elevator stopped at the ground floor. They walked out into the lobby. Marianne stopped at the revolving door. She looked back, the marble atrium, the security turnstiles, the guards. She had passed through there thousands of times, invisible, tired, broken inside. Now she passed differently, head held high. Outside, Luke and Julia waited in the car. Marianne got in. She started the engine. "Mom," Julia asked from the back seat, "do you think everything happened for a reason?" Marianne looked at her daughter in the rear-view mirror. "I think we create the reasons, honey, with the decisions we make every day. And you decided never to give up. I decided not to give up. Every day, even when it seemed impossible to keep going." Luke checked something on his phone. "We should have gone out for dinner, to celebrate." Marianne smiled. "We'll have dinner at home. I'll cook something good." "But you always cook." "Because I like it. It relaxes me to chop vegetables." Julia laughed. "You're weird, Mom." "I am weird. And you guys are going to have to live with that." The three laughed together, a sound that filled the car. Marianne drove through the illuminated streets of New York. The city pulsed around her, alive, chaotic, full of stories like hers. People fighting, people restarting from zero, people getting up after falling. And she had learned something vital in these 7 years of struggle, that dignity is not something given or gifted to you. It is something you claim. That respect isn't deserved just by existing. It is built with hard work, with courage, and with the absolute refusal to be erased from the map. That a single moment of bravery can change the trajectory of an entire life. And that the greatest victory is not proving anything to those who humiliated you in the past. It is proving to yourself every morning in the mirror that you were always enough.